Love it or hate it, GameStop is one of the biggest players in the video game universe. After years of retail consolidation into a few major players, GameStop is the largest game retailer in the world. Prior to the advent of digital games, GameStop was one of the few companies that could dictate price, availability, and even what games were made based on what they were willing to buy. Whether you like GameStop or not, the reality is that a strong, vibrant GameStop is good for the hobby and the community. That said, GameStop certainly isn't doing itself any favors these days and is consistently one of the most hated figures in the gaming industry. In this episode, we explore GameStop's problems and chart a course to get them back into relevance in the eyes of the larger gaming community. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 56 of the Business Casual Gamers podcast, the show focused on gamers with jobs, families, who have things to do in real life. My name is Chris Smoke, and as always, I am here alongside my co-host, Mr. Aaron Connick. Sir, how are you?
I am awesome, Chris. Cannot wait to buy some used games.
Very good. Buying some used games. Can't wait to get into this one. It's going to be a good one. But before we do, ladies and gentlemen, please check us out on our website at businesscasualgamers.com. You can find us on Twitter at BISCasualGamers. And also, check us on YouTube. We have some new stuff coming up. I tweeted about it earlier in the week. I think we're going to have some interesting new series to show. I know we say that a couple times. This is actually going to be really fun, I think, about getting back into gaming. You'll see some of those things come on over the next couple months. We'll have plenty of episodes planned for that. So please be sure to check out that. Also, please take the opportunity, if you don't mind, to rate us in your favorite podcast application, marketplace, if you will. I don't know.
I heard about a new one yesterday that somebody asked me, can I listen to you here? I didn't even know what it was.
Really? But there you go.
We'll figure out a way to get there if we're not
We're there, ladies and gentlemen. You can find us certainly on Spotify, on Stitcher, on iTunes, on Google Play, on all the ones that you really, most likely the ones you're listening on right now. Please take the opportunity to rate us if you don't mind. That feedback is great for us. We love it. And it also helps us find new people, much like yourself, for our audience. We do appreciate every one of your ratings. And with that, Aaron, let's talk about GameStop.
The elephant in the game room, as we have called it.
The elephant in the game room.
Now, wait. Before we start, Chris, obligatory. Okay. I have to ask our audience, did you pre-order this episode? If not, I'm going to need to check the pre-order.
You have to check the pre.
Okay, we'll make an exception.
We might not have the inventory.
We'll make that's right. We can't fill the inventory. So, we'll proceed anyway.
Yeah. Okay.
So, Chris, I want our listeners. This will be an interesting exercise. I want everybody to close their eyes, take a moment, and for all of you GameStop customers, I want you to take yourself back in time to that first trade-in experience that you ever had. You know, you had that system. You had that game that you finished a little earlier than you thought, and you said, you know what? I don't need to hang on to this like a sucker.
No, it's money's for it.
I can convert this to cash money or video games that I would like to play more. And so everybody has had that experience, whether they've continued with the trade-in or not.
Right.
They have certainly had that moment. So, Chris, let's do a little role play exercise to size this one up.
So,
Chris, I'm going to play the role of the helpful GameStop employee that is going to facilitate your valued trade-in. Chris, what you got for me this week?
I've got a copy of Nintendo World Championships.
Ooh, okay.
The gold version. I picked that up, I don't know, found it in the ground. I also have a PS2. I bought a Switch yesterday, brand new, haven't opened it.
Brand new, okay.
A couple games, haven't opened them either. I got them home and realized...
Did you buy a warranty on those games?
Of course.
Okay, good.
Of course. I got home and I realized that, maybe I want an Xbox One X or two Xbox One X's. So instead, I'm bringing my Switch and my unopened games to you.
Okay.
I like to trade those in, I think, though.
Okay, so let's go through this offer. So we don't stock anything earlier than a PS3, Xbox 360. So that World Championship.
Oh, it's not good.
It's probably not worth anything.
I'm gonna throw it away then.
Yeah. Why don't you go ahead and just put it in the dumpster? I've got a trash can back here with all my Taco Bell wrappers. So if you don't mind, just put it.
Sure, I'll give it to you. No problem.
So we'll take care of that. So
such customer service.
Absolutely. The PS2. I think I've heard of that console before. I think that,
no one's heard of that,
but I don't think anybody buys that.
It's like a TurboGrafx.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's about on the level with the Virtual Boy that we do stock. We do have those in stock.
Oh, good. So if I want to vomit,
we do have that.
Okay,
yes.
Cool.
Now the Nintendo Switch. Now, the wrapper on this looks really pristine. But so you bought it from this store, right?
No.
No. Oh, okay. Well, good. Because if you would have. we've had a lot of people who have walked by the mall food court.
Yeah.
And, just the stench of the rancid sesame chicken at one of the stands, usually that declined. Oh, you did?
Oh, there was a garlic smell, too.
See, that's going to knock about 75% off the value.
Oh, man.
But that's fine. That's fine. This is still going to be a great trade for you.
Oh, okay.
The games, we'll work through it. So I'm crunching the numbers. I think we're going to be able to offer you $30. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I paid $250 yesterday for it. It's still in the bag.
Oh, no. Whoa. Hold on. That's just the cash value. I'm sorry. I was mistaken. I didn't even tell you about the store credit.
Got kind of worried for a minute.
And we're having a bonus. We're having a special
bonus
this week.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, absolutely. I can get you $50 in store credit for all of those.
$50? But I okay.
I can see the excitement on your face.
Yeah, I really want that. I really want that new NBA Jam game. I think I'll do it.
At this point in time, I'll switch roles to the role of the customer standing in line behind, saying, "Hey, can I just pay you $200 for that new Switch right now and so save myself some money?"
No. You complete the transaction and then I walk away. At which point, the cashier, say, "New Switch right here, so $210."
So I hope some of you have had some flashbacks, maybe some war stories, similar experience.
That's like post-traumatic or something, right?
Can we understand why GameStop may be in trouble slightly just from this experience? I mean, I would love to say, maybe the Nintendo World Championship is slight hyperbole, but there have been serious games. I have some valuable games, not that valuable, but $100+ games that I would be willing to trade in, but they won't take them. They're like, "Oh, nobody plays that."
No.
Actually, there are many more people who, if they saw the copy of this, would buy this in pristine condition over your, NBA Jam or your Madden Bro edition.
Tournament edition, though.
Right.
Never mind.
This is something that, to me, like I said, I don't think it's that much hyperbole to actually say most of you who have ever tried to trade something into GameStop have had this reconciliation with reality where you're saying the economics of this makes no sense whatsoever.
Yeah.
And that's even when they're just making you the offer. Forget when you actually see them turn it around and put it back on the shelf at triple the value you sold it to them for. It's crazy.
Yeah, this is why I love Reddit, because you get to see these things where man. If you've browsed the gaming section of Reddit, for more than a month or so, you'll definitely see the guy that goes into GameStop and takes a picture of the used copy of Fortnite or whatever. Well, Fortnite's free, but used copy of Mario World or whatever that's like $50, and the new copy that's like $49.
Absolutely.
You're like, wait a minute, I don't understand. That's why I don't think I've ever traded in anything to GameStop particularly because of that. I've taken stuff in, like you, Aaron. I had a lot of times where I wanted to kind of just declutter a lot of the games I had, and they were like PS2, PS3 era. You bring them in, and they're like, "Yeah, we'll give you 55 cents for this."
Right, and it's seriously, they will look at you with a straight face.
They're not sports games either, right? They're not sport. They're good games,
and it's amazing because one of the things. So the way we're going to kind of go through this show is we'll talk about some of the obvious problems and our experiences with those first, but then we're going to try and bring it back to the where to go from here almost, right? Because the tide is kind of is letting out on GameStop. Their quarterly results have not been great. Obviously, with the digitization of games, things are not the same that they used to be. But you would think that in light of that they are adapting to the needs of people like us who, again, you look in the background if you're watching this on YouTube, and we have a lot of physical stuff, right? We still collect the physical stuff, and this should be the one bastion to provide that. Now, if you go into the average GameStop, let's just say you peruse the wall of used games. I'm a collector, Chris. You're a collector, right? You look at the games that are on the shelf behind us. You look in my house. These games are, for the most part, pristine, right?
Right.
Clean box, looks really good. When I look at the quality of some of the used games at GameStop that they are selling for, to your point, either like at or above new game price.
Oh, yes.
Only a child, stoner, or moron would actually buy some of the used games. Now, granted, Chris, listen, I don't mean to. I know that children, stoners, and morons are a material percentage of the GameStop customer base. I'm sure it's in their financial statements if I read closely
hearts
enough.
and minds over here.
But I mean, it's like they have these games, not even with the box art, no manual. The disc is all scratched up. They had some employee with a second grade education scratch in crayon the game title and maybe misspell it. I've seen that at times, and they basically will have 2 used copies of a game in drastically different conditions. And they'll charge either the same or next to the same for it. And I'm saying, if I were to go on eBay, if I were to talk to a private seller, all of these things are taken into consideration in terms of variable values to say, okay, in this condition, it's probably this one. I mean, it is amazing how little regard they have for the people who still actually care about the physical games. Because I go into the average store and look, I found some gems. I've bought several back early. We were talking before the show. When I got my first real adult job, if you will, and I finally had some disposable income, I went hog wild, right? All the games that I never had enough money to save up to buy, I go to a GameStop and I'm like, great, I can catch up on entire generations that I just didn't have the money to buy. Yeah. And I was there just combing through the shelves. There were maybe 20 copies of a certain game. But I looked through every one of them, looked through the inside, looked at the manual, looked at the disc. And I remember because this manager saw me often, and she finally kind of got to the point where I'd go up and I'd say, hey, can I actually get this box and this manual and this disc?
Yeah.
All the same. And she kind of looked at me, and I think once she finally understood, like, oh, this person actually cares about the product they were buying and that we're stocking, she just kind of said, okay, this guy buys enough games, like, do whatever. If it'll sell it. Because the rest of our customers must not care. I mean, it was just, to me, it incensed me that there was that little care for the product.
Well, so 2 things. I think this is, from my mind, this says a lot, right? So many of you are probably familiar with Goodwill stores. And for those of you who aren't, Goodwill stores are basically when you have things that you don't want to, you can't, like, don't want to throw away, you want to give to someone, donate or whatever, you can give them to a Goodwill store, just give it to it for free. You get a receipt so you can write it off in your taxes, and they go resell it for some price, like $1, $2, nothing much. So the point is here, typically the types of things that get turned into these Goodwill stores are like, I've got literally a crate full of just junk that sat in my garage for like 10 years. I don't know what's in it. I'm just going to hand it to you. Just get rid of it. And I have found that this is sad, I think. More often than not, the quality of games, like the condition of games that you get out of the Goodwill, which has gone through like literal trash bins to be put on shelves for $1, is greater than the things that I've seen come out of GameStop. And I guess I bought a handful of games, not a lot, handful of games out of GameStop, and you can go, kind of peruse the collection here in the back, and you can very easily see what came from that kind of a store. And to your point, Aaron, not everyone is going to care about having the most pristine thing in the world. Now, we've talked about this before. I have 5 or 6 copies of Zelda 1 because I've bought, every time I've come across a newer gold copy that is better than the last, or with the map, or with the, with the actual instruction manual, or it's in better condition, I've bought, more and more and more of them. The goal is to really pick the litter and keep that one, put it in the box, and then sell the rest. I don't do that necessarily, but a lot of people don't need to go to that that level, but they do want to have something that doesn't look like it's been like churned up in like a meat grinder,
Right.
And it's like, I think that if you see a box or you see a manual that's like ripped to absolute shreds, more than likely the game's not going to play super well. The disc is going to be, you can look at it and it might be okay, but more than likely, you're going to have an issue with it just overall playing, skipping, and things like that. So I don't know.
It drives me nuts because they don't even trust their employees enough to deal with variable pricing. You know that the reason they don't do this is because they want to use kind of the McDonald's school of thought of the more we make our people think, the more risk there is that somebody's going to make a mistake and pay too much on a trade-in. And so we're just going to assume that everybody is too stupid to be able to handle a trade-in and understand differences in condition. And even the most simplified, like, hey, excellent condition, good condition, poor condition, or just disc only, right? They can't even trust people to do that level of basic thought, which frankly would allow them to vary their trade-in offers. And somebody who brought in a pristine game, they can say, hey, I can pay you more than your 55 cents because I can sell it for more to a discerning buyer. And it frustrates me for the employees. And listen, we've interacted. I've known many people. There are listeners of the show that I was talking to beforehand that have worked at GameStop that are just like us, that are collectors, that grew up. They took the job because they love video games. They want to be around it. And the fact that the people at GameStop, in the executive level, the territory managers and whatnot, the fact that they would not recognize that and say, okay, maybe there are clearly going to be some instances with as big a company as this is. Somebody is going to pay a little much on a trade-in. Somebody's going to misidentify. But listen, we've seen this with like Magic the Gathering, collectible card games, right? Where condition matters.
Right.
People, they have buyers that do this stuff. And they are not any more educated than the average GameStop employee, yet they're able to run profitable businesses and determine condition, not with 100% accuracy, but certainly with enough to run a business.
But you think about, not that I want to make this a negligible point, but I do think that, when you think about kind of allowances and budgets and kinds of, incidental kinds of things that you budget for as far as a business, like theft, right? People walking out with games or walking out with product that they didn't pay for. You as a retail manager, you kind of budget that in. There's going to be some level of theft, right? And you can build very profitable business models with that kind of a thing in mind. Like Amazon has a business model where, for example, I bought some stuff last week and I don't return stuff often, but I received a package and the package was torn open and I said, I'd like to return this. And they said, yeah, keep that version. We'll send you another one.
Yeah.
And, that was them just literally eating the cost of a pretty heavy package to send and the product inside. And so, I think you can make models around that where, if we train the level, we train our employees to this level where they're going to be like 85% of the time, they're going to make that right call. Yeah, sometimes we're going to overpay, but all in all, it's going to come out in the wash, right?
That's right. And you're going to have more loyal customers. So, Chris, I got to jump on my high horse for a second to really close this out on the used game side. Chris, if I get one more box with 20 freaking GameStop stickers on it, I didn't come here for arts and crafts. I came here to play a video game, Chris. I don't understand why. I swear. So I'm almost tempted to apply for a job at GameStop just to get far enough through the hiring process to confirm that there is a designated person in the back of the store whose job it is to apply the stickers and take a heating element to them to make sure that they are as gooey as possible so that when you try to take that sticker off, you have no choice but to bring it back to GameStop and trade it in because it's destroyed the value.
Aaron, you missed a very, very critical portion of their task list, which is look at the box, okay, and observe the most fragile, important piece of that box. Like if it's like a 1981 version of the NES, whatever, look at that one part of the box that's just starting to tear, put that sticker right there.
Yeah.
So if you even try, if you're smart enough, you even think you're smart enough to try to get that sticker off, you're tearing that entire box apart.
It is unreal. I mean, Chris, I have an app on my phone that if I just scan the actual, not the GameStop barcode, the actual barcode of the item, will go identify the item from an online database, look up a price, and automatically catalog it.
Very nice app. Yeah, I like that.
I paid maybe $4 for this app. Right. GameStop, I think, can afford a $4 tag to get themselves some software that could do the same thing. And guess what? Granted, I'm guessing they spent 5 cents in a Chinese factory to buy a year's worth of stickers. So maybe this would not be a cost savings to them. But seriously, you already have a barcode on the box. There is a title on the game. Why is it that you cannot have an inventory management system that does not require somebody to sit down and deface property that I want to buy? It's insane. Chris, I have a copy of Ratchet and Clank Collection that I want to burn and reorder. The game works fine, but it has this gooey spot on it that will never go away.
Goo Gone won't get rid of it. Yeah,
nothing will get. It is literally burned. I'm going to throw it away right now. Okay, I need them. I'm going to throw this away. Gosh. I'm going to order a new copy. We're going to be done with this.
We're going to do a review of the old copy and the new copy right before he burns it in effigy. But yeah, I mean, I don't know why they didn't just simplify it and I know there are nuances in how you do this, but just stratify your games. Just say, like, this is a $5 box, $10 box, $20 box, or whatever. Just put, like, bins of games out there, like a lot of other used game stores do. And yeah, occasionally you'll get someone who cross mixes and whatever, but then, you ring it up and you have that little, oh gosh, this is actually a $10 game conversation, and it's not that big of a deal. But I think it helps a lot of collectors. It helps because you don't have to go through and, like, visually, because I've even seen, Aaron, this is the thing that drives me insane. I want to go buy a used copy of Game X, right? And I see 4 copies on the thing, and I pull out Game X, and, like, this Game X is, like, mislabeled, and this Game X is, like, $59 new, but it's clearly used, and this one, like, I don't know what's going on. I mean, the games, some of the games have different prices, and not because of quality of the game, but because, like, negligence in actually, like, making sure your inventory is lined up with everyone, and synced across the store is just running rampant. And I've taken those things up to the cashier before, and I'll say, well, like, I want this copy of this game, but it's labeled $10 more than this copy right here. And they're like, oh, well, they can't figure it out. It's just so frustrating from my perspective on that. I don't know. No,
it totally is. Again,
maybe not the level of the sticker thing.
No, the sticker thing drives me nuts. Now, let's get into the new games, because this has its own set of unique problems. Mm-hmm. The experience of purchasing a new game, and we'll get into kind of what I think is the most recent controversy with some of the sales practices that are coming down from on high in corporate. The normal pitch that you have to go through to purchase a new game, and again, I want to say, for any GameStop employees listening, I get it. You're trying to keep your job. You are having corporate policies imposed on you. I get it. Well, this is not targeted towards you.
No, not
you
at
know
all.
better.
Not at all.
I get it. But the fact that they would run you through a script to say, hey, have you pre-ordered it? You have not incentivized me to pre-order your game whatsoever. Even if you're part of the special GameStop Power Up Club or whatever it is.
You get the keychain.
They only incentivize used game purchases. Used, not new. Amazon Prime gives me a 20% discount. And I don't have to go into a store to get it for new games. And so you've given me zero incentive to pre-order it. You've got 10,000 copies of the Fist Bump Special Edition in the back. I know I can see them.
Yeah.
Don't pretend like you won't sell it to me if I give you money.
But no, that's Johnny's.
Oh yeah, it's been pre-ordered. No. Don't. Yeah. You don't need to look at that. Yeah, we have 10 million of them, but believe me, they're all accounted for if you don't have one. There has been like one pre-order in the history of games that I've ever not been able to get from somewhere just because I didn't lock in.
Unless it's a console.
Yeah, right. That's pretty much it. And it's just, and then they have, assuming you've kind of gotten through that whole song and dance, say, yeah, no pre-order, sorry, just sell me the game. Then, what about a warranty? You're certainly going to need a warranty. I mean, what if the disc scratches? I mean, it's probably already scratched from when our employee opened the box and put it into our little theft drawer. So but I mean, it's just the fact. I know they design these things for when grandma and grandpa come in and they buy little Johnny the new game, and they're worried. Oh, well, what is this compact disc format?
Right. They drop it in their Effordent or whatever.
I have heard so many just appalling stories of where warranties are sold, and these, I mean, not even a lie is beyond what happens, where it is, you are telling that it is like worse than snake oil sales to try and convince people why they should pay for this warranty or this ridiculous accessory that nobody needs to just put a disc in and play it.
Yeah.
To me, it's like, it's no wonder you are driving people and honestly parents into the online or the digital economy, because when they have less trust in the physical store, that they're going to go in thinking, hey, I can touch this, I can look at it, I can inspect it, I can compare it, I can ask questions, and I'm going to have a comfort level because of that. But no, I'm going to be lied to instead. I'm going to be sold something I don't want. I'm going to me, it's like it ruins the retail experience and what retail does best. And GameStop only has itself to blame for that.
Yeah, you know what's sad about this is I think that any one of us in the audience, I know I probably speak for you as well, Aaron, a lot of us, because we're gamers and because, as you mentioned, a lot of the GameStop employees are BCGs, right? They are business casual gamers. They are gamers at heart. They love this stuff, right? And they figure, what better way to start a career than to go, work for a company where I can sell games, talk to people about games, play them, all that kind of stuff. You would think that that GameStop would be the perfect place for us to go. And truth be told, years ago, a lot of mom and pop stores are where I would go to get my games, right? Because I knew the people, they knew me. You can actually have conversations, and we'll talk a little bit more about what we think they could do better, but you can have conversations with people about the kinds of games you're interested in and really invest yourself in it. And it became, sometime probably in the late 90s, early 2000s, it became obvious to me that, a lot of those stores become, so the ones that didn't fall out, the ones that are kind of acquired by GameStop or, something similar eventually to be acquired by GameStop, were so much more focused on the kind of like the EA thing, right? The actual corporate nature of the company, that it became, and to your point, because they're constantly asking you whether you pre-order, they're constantly asking you to be a reward, whatever it might be, I started going to places like Best Buy.
Sure.
Because, to be honest, I haven't bought a physical game in, 5, 6 years from a retail store. I just go from Amazon or somewhere online, but I would go to Best Buy. Why? Because I could physically go there, look at the game, pick it up, buy it. No one asks me a question. No one bothers me.
Exactly.
And, it's sad because I yearn, in a sense, to have that conversation with people, to hang out, just to I was on business travel. I was mentioning this to you, Aaron, earlier. I was in business travel a couple of weeks ago. And, I'd gone out with some coworkers for dinner, and, after they were all going home to their families, and, I was going to go back to the hotel, but I looked across the way and I saw, there's a GameStop over here. I haven't been in a GameStop in years. Let me just go and let me just walk around, peruse, just see what they're out there. Maybe I'll strike up a conversation with people, being a game podcaster, being an indie developer. Podcast. I could just shoot the breeze with these people for a while. It'd be awesome. And I go in there and, I'm immediately turned off for a lot of reasons, but the people weren't very engaging. Probably not their fault. Probably because they were just their souls were slowly being crushed by the corporation that they work for. But I just tried to go around. I was like, hey, let me look to see if there are any new cool JRPGs around, because I hadn't been looking for those in a while. Let me. Oh, I can't really figure that out. Well, let me look to see. I just want another controller. I want a pro controller for something, right? For my Switch. And I can't find that either. And I left inside of 10 minutes and it was a very sour experience. I actually walked out thinking, well, because I was actually looking for another game, and the game was new. It was for the Switch. I forgot which one it was, but it was overpriced compared to where I could get it online. And I ended up walking out. I distinctly remember walking to my car. Man, I just shouldn't have gone there. And it's sad for me to say that as a gamer, having free time. I'd rather go sit in my car or just sit in a hotel room and watch, some terrible TV show or whatever until I go to sleep, than spend some time in some quote unquote free time in a potential gaming utopia, right? Retail scenario. And so that's just, for me, I think that's where we have really kind of lost a lot over the course of over things. And I think, as we kind of dig more deeper into the podcast, we'll talk more about what we think could happen here. But, it has certainly gotten to the point where I just feel alienated by them as a brand. Right?
Yeah, and I think one of the things that's been discussed a lot in news in recent, not even months, but recent, probably the last couple of years is when I first heard about it, is that corporate, as the advent of digital has just continued to grow and has continued to threaten both the new and the used games business, frankly. And you've got stronger competitors, even in the retail space, mainly in Amazon and certainly in eBay from a used game space.
Right.
I feel like the corporate reaction has been, we need to kind of double down. We need to hold on to what we have. And they've done this with just what I would consider crazy corporate policy. And so they've had this program recently called the Circle of Life. It is basically, I'll call it their kind of corporate sales plan that they push down to the stores. And what it dictates is basically a mix of product that they are expecting their employees to sell. So to give you an example, they are really trying to maximize the mix of used product. They want the warranty sales. They want the game. What is it? Basically the rewards program.
Right.
They're trying to get a mix of the most profitable things. Which, look, all sales goals for any sales organization are built around, hey, we want you to sell the most profitable products. I get that. Mm-hmm. But you are getting to the point of perverse incentive where I have heard many stories of people who, when they looked at their sales goals and they said, okay, I'm a little light on the used sales. Somebody comes in to buy a new game or a new console, and they know based on the way they're going to be evaluated as an employee, if I make this new sale, mm-hmm. whether it's the right thing to do by the customer or not, just by act of making this sale, I am going to hurt myself and endanger my own career, mm-hmm. right? Just for doing the right thing by the customer. Like, if that customer comes in, if it's you or me, and we say, hey, I want the new copy of this, right? I don't want to negotiate about what I want. I know what I want. I know more than you do about the product probably, and I don't need to be coached about it. Here's what I want. You're either going to sell it to me or you're not, and I really don't want to waste my time talking about all the different options. I know the options.
Well, it's like a restaurant, right? You order the filet, and everyone's like, "Yes, sir," right?
Right.
If you ask for, like, what do you recommend? I like something like a steak. Oh, well, we recommend these kinds of options, right? There's a difference between coming in and just ordering and just completing the sale and moving it forward, because arguably I would say that you could move through more sales opportunities that way, and maybe in the long run you make up the difference from that. The upsell you're going to get kind of pushing them down a different lane, and you don't have to be a sleazy scumbag about it either.
And 90% of the time, much like you, right? I go into a store, I know exactly what I want. A lot of times I picked up a special edition at a Best Buy actually a couple weeks ago, and I ordered it online. It was in-store pickup. I go to the counter, I tell them my name, I show them my ID, and they give me the game, and there's no warranty sale. They just hand it to me. I've already paid for it. Transaction's over. Mm-hmm. And when I go to a GameStop, it's usually I'm expecting the same, but on the off chance that, let's say, I have a question. Maybe it's, hey, I'm thinking about this game. I've done some reading, but have you played it? Do you have any other customers, right? That is, I can read all the reviews in the world, but that is some kind of on-the-ground intel that would actually be really helpful for me, and I would appreciate. But a lot of times, just like you said, a lot of the people, and this is not to stereotype or typecast all employees, but I think people are feeling the pain of the metrics so much that they're running scared, and they can't just serve their customers.
Yeah, it's funny because I think that the internet has certainly both helped and hindered this particular thing you're talking about. Because I'm getting to the point where I'm trying to join the 4K world, right? I'm thinking about, you can go out and get some 4K TVs really, really cheaply, and I thought, well, I might go to a PS4 Pro, right? But then I thought, well, Amazon was having some sort of spat with Sony, and I couldn't get one, so I stopped, and I said, you know what, I just need to step back and think about this. I can't do 4K Blu-ray with PS4 Pro. I should look at the Xbox One X, right? Because it could be a good media platform that can play Blu-rays for when my family wants to watch 4K Blu-ray, and I also get some good games out of it. I spent a lot of time on YouTube trying to figure out and this is 2018, right? So a lot of the PS4 Pro versus Xbox One X things were at least a number of months old. Very few people really had the answer to the question I had. And I could have gone to, Reddit or to other forums, but I didn't feel like that scratched the itch. I really wanted to have a conversation with someone. And that's exactly what you're talking about. This would be interesting if I could have gone into a store and be like, hey, I know you want to sell me an Xbox One X or a PS4 Pro. I know that. But just talk to me about why I would or wouldn't do this. And, because there are very few exclusives, but there are some cool games. Like Forza is really cool. And, let's have a gamer-to-gamer conversation like you or I might, Aaron, and trying to weigh the pros and cons. And you just can't do that outside of, inside one of those stores. You used to be able to do it. Think about when you go to, we switched to the conversation over to like Magic the Gathering, right?
Sure.
You go to a comic and a card store that sells Magic the Gathering, where people, they typically, most of those stores have an area for you to play, have an area for you to discuss, an area where fans of that particular medium or that particular game or whatnot can play the game, can chat about the game, can hang out. And oh, by the way, because they're there, they're more likely to come over, step across the side of the store and buy some more product, right? And, that kind of a thing is interesting from my perspective because you just don't have that anymore, right? The only analogous thing to that is a Reddit, which is, admit it or not, it is still a less personal interaction than I think I would like to because, heck, we started a podcast, right? We started a podcast over 2.5 years ago because we wanted to bring together a community because we knew that there were business casual gamers everywhere, across the street, down the road, in the grocery store line behind us. But we had a hard time finding a nexus to say, everyone in this room right now is a gamer, right? I can go into a Magic store or whatever, into a store with comics, and I can say, everyone on this side of these tables is a Magic the Gathering player. I can sit down with any one of them, and I can identify with them. I can't do that as well for the gaming scene locally, at least.
Yeah, and that's sad because the reality is it's a far bigger hobby than most of the other ones you named.
Yeah,
I mean, by orders of magnitude. So let's pause there and let's look at maybe the upside. Now, I will tell you, as much as I think it sounds like we're spewing hatred against GameStop, I really do have a soft spot in my heart for retail game stores, right? I go back, both of us go back further to where GameStop wasn't as a particular brand. Now, they've acquired some of the brands that we grew up with. I mean, electronics boutique, software, et cetera. Babbage's, another one, right? A lot of these have kind of been gobbled up over the years. But I have really fond memories, even going all the way back to like Toys R Us, of going to the game store and just having the excitement of having the physical thing, making sure it was in stock, all those things. Like, I have fond memories, even though I think I'm certainly happy to have more options now. I don't want to see GameStop fail because, like you said, I think for people like us who are actively trying to build and maintain a community of gamers, I mean, GameStop's got all the built-in advantages. They've got real estate locations all over the place that could facilitate just this. I mean, think of it, Chris. If they had their act together, I mean, we could do meetup events at the local GameStop, or we could record live from a GameStop. Like, all of these things I have had when I have, I know I think I've mentioned on past shows, but I've done some broadcasting for a collectible card game, Android Netrunner, and literally the store owner said, "Hey, do you want the space in the back to broadcast this?" Right?
Yeah.
That is a marriage between community and distributor and retailer that could happen, should happen, but GameStop doesn't really seem all that interested, and that's something that I find both confusing and sad, given the fact that if you're going to really sell people on the idea that retail and having that physical location in your backyard makes a difference, and you don't just want to get it from some distribution warehouse in the middle of nowhere, right? You have to create the case for them to actually care.
Yeah, and that's the hard part. I won't lie. For many years, I've thought about how you build one of these. Like, I would love to go start a game company or a game store, locally. But I hate to use the word monopoly in a sense, but GameStop has gotten to the point where it combined with the fact that Amazon is eating its lunch, and Amazon would probably eat anybody's lunch in a retail scenario. When you've got like Walmart and Target running scared, it's hard. And so you're right. I think you have to figure that out. And the problem is probably because, when you think about a card store, typically card stores have been around for a long period of time, and you can kind of get a feel for when you go into them. You'll have 50 people in the room, 25 people, whatever, and they'll have all driven 25, 30 miles to get wherever they are, right? They flock to these certain locations. There aren't too many of those kinds of stores. It's hard for me to think about how I know BCGs are out there. I know we have lots of people like us. There are lots of people who are more dedicated gaming, more power gamers than we are, that would love to be in that kind of a place. But I can't, as a potential business owner in that case, I can't go start a retail store on a hunch that I think people are going to find us and drive to us. So what do? Well, most people who look to start these kinds of things start eBay stores, they start their own Shopify channels, and they say, well, there's a niche here where we can sell, these packages of used games and certain 16-bit RPG collection kinds of things. We can sell that stuff online, and maybe what happens is you do it the opposite direction. You say, okay, I'm going to sell online, and what will eventually happen is if we get enough people who know about us, then you can do something like a game coffee shop or a game bar or something like that. That does do some retail, game selling, but it is more focused on the social aspect of it. And granted, we have, being here in Atlanta, we actually have a couple interesting places that have tried to do this fusion that has worked decently well. But I think they're focused a little bit slightly off base of what we're trying to do, or we would try to do. But I think that there is certainly a market for that if you can figure out where they are and how best to place that.
Yeah, so let's talk about kind of the first opportunity that you touched on there. So you talked about people kind of opening the eBay store to say, hey, let me carve my own niche. Now, when I look at that market, that is to me a huge market for not just used games, but actual, I'll call it vintage games, things that are hard to find in a particular condition, limited print run, older consoles, right? There are lots of different categories you can talk about. To me, GameStop should completely control the market around that. I mean, I'm not going to turn this into an economics show, but right, if you control all the supply of a particular item, let's just say I know that, hey, Chrono Trigger, that's a popular game. There's a lot of people that want a mint in box copy or just an in-box copy in their collection. I can buy up the entire supply based on my centralized buying power and the fact that I have money to throw and a portal to reach people who are trying to sell. I could buy up the supply. Now, Chris, if I'm trying to shop for a copy of this and all the copies are sold by GameStop, or substantially all of them, do I really know whether it's worth $100, $200, $300, right? Who can say?
Right.
If the demand is there for a product, right, they can set the price. And I'm not saying there is unlimited pricing power, but right now, they don't even participate in this space, and they have zero pricing power just because they really haven't made a significant enough push to say, no, we're not going to have this as an offering.
Yeah. We
are going to own this market like we basically try to own the used game market.
Yeah, and I think some people listening would probably look at that and say, oh, well, this would be GameStop trying to, again, gouge customers. But think about it this way. I would submit that what would happen is, maybe you price that Chrono Trigger at $300. Well, it's not going to sell at $300. I don't think so. Not very few people will buy it at $300. But what you'll find is organically, they want to move that stock. They want to get the stock in and they want to move them back out. And so what they will end up doing is organically that price will slowly kind of, you will form a natural or find a natural price point that is people are willing to pay and the product will move. And it's easier. I think it's easier. It would be easier for, I can't believe I'm saying this because it seems a little bit weird, but it would be easier for a one-stop shop to have like, this is the price for Chrono Trigger. If that people think it's fair, people are paying $100 for it or whatever, and this is where you go. Right now, if you go to eBay, you find some of them selling for $20, some of them selling for $120, some people selling for $300, and you're like, I actually can't discern what the value of this game is right now.
What's wrong with this copy? Why is this one so much lower than that one?
Exactly. And so if you're buying a game that, naturally people are buying it at this price point, GameStop can kind of figure out what that is. They can kind of know what they're willing to scoop it up for, what they need to get out of it back on the other side. And a consumer would get a better feel for how to, what the market's price is for that. Now, they could take it or leave it, they could like it or not, right? I've already told many episodes we've talked about how I think that a lot of these 16-bit games that I would love to play, like Metal Storm, I'd love to buy that game. It's too expensive.
Right.
And I'm just not willing to pay what it is going for right now. But I do think it's not all, the way we kind of couched it could have easily been taken that GameStop is just like going to jack this price up by 500% and own the world. If you want Chrono Trigger, give me $500. But I think organically that would eventually go away, given some time, and we would all get better as an ecosystem at kind of self-regulating prices for these things.
Yeah, I totally agree. And the nice thing is, I think that's something that, because they would centralize purchasing and presumably that would be done online, right? They could standardize. Okay, you have these types of pictures for every listing. Whereas eBay, okay, maybe this person actually cares enough to do multiple angles and show me, take out the manual and all that so I can really see the condition and the level I want to. They could do all that, and it wouldn't even take store real estate, which is something, let's talk about how we can better use that store real estate. If you go to a GameStop now, there are so many shelves of cluttered garbage that it's very difficult for me to make my way through a GameStop and efficiently find what I need. I mean, look, we can all glance on the walls and we can find the console. Okay, here's the Xbox section. Here's the PlayStation section. I can do that. But once I actually try to get down to here is the game that I want, can I find quality copies of this? It just takes longer to sort through something in a GameStop than it does to pull it up on Amazon or eBay. It just does.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that anything that they are currently doing is going to help relieve that. But what they could do instead of devoting tons of shelf space to just cluttered games, when in reality, if you were to keep this in the back and just say, hey, you can pull it up on your phone or you can pre-order it and you're going to know the condition. We can show it to you when you get in the store. We don't need to just put it out on the floor, right? The merchandise offerings. I spend probably as much money on gaming merchandise than I do on games. And the merch offerings are weak, Chris. If you go into a GameStop, it's amiibos. It's the whatever I can't remember what is it, the Funko, the plushy dolls. Stuff that's not even video game related.
For those of you watching on YouTube, you can see that I'm I just bought a Hylian Shield backpack that was it's massive, and you're right. I mean, if I walk into a store like that, even if I don't intend to buy a game, I'm probably going to come out with like a Link figure or something like that. And then, granted, that's small stuff. They're not going to make millions of dollars off of those kinds of things, but maybe in aggregate. But I do think you're right. There's a little bit of an opportunity there to reuse some of those shelves, to focus less on. One thing that I think about the space that I've always noticed is they tend to have that, that GameStop TV channel, which is almost like the channel you get or like what you watch when you go to a movie before the actual premiere starts. Like, hey, welcome to GameStop TV.
Right.
Today we're going to talk about the new game that you want to pre-order. Like, guys, just how about putting something else out there like Twitch streams or something cool that's more focused on the actual culture part of the game. Again, I think this is really the ultimate underlying tone that we're trying to set here, is focus more on the culture. And I know it's hard because when you think about, we talked about this with EA, when you've got this scenario where you've got a for-profit company, you've got, in many cases, you've got companies that are public, they have fiduciary responsibilities as executives and all of that to make sure they make more money and they keep making more money. I get that, but sometimes it's not all about trying to make the math, the numbers in that math equation bigger. There are some ancillary factors that you can go after that make it even better. Like, let's make, as an example, I always talk about when you think about teams, right? And this is a little bit of a side note here, but you get about teams and you say, okay, well, how is this team effective, right? Many people will say you measure effectiveness of a team by how, do they get their tasks done? They have 10 tasks. Do they complete those tasks? If they did, great, effective. Well, you can do that. You can sell games, right? You can get people to turn in games, and you can do whatever you want to do. It still doesn't mean you're actually being as effective as you could be. What instead you might say is, let's talk about, back to the team analogy, you've got a team that you care more about the organic happiness of that team and how fulfilled they are and how excited they are to do that work. And organically, your result is going to be, you're going to hit those marks. You're going to do those 10 things plus more. And here, it's very similar. If you spend less time taking those passionate gamers who are your employees and treating them, frankly, better, or think about the other thing that they've been criticized for from the used game front is they go out and they hire people who are extremely, low pay, and we all know you get what you pay for when you do this. Someone coming in very low pay, trying to tell the difference between two Flintstones NES games. By the way, Flintstones Surprise Dinosaur Peak is like a super rare $1,000 game, and then the second one is like super cheap. And in many cases, they don't even read the label. They send the $1,000 game out for $2 or $5, and that just lost the company a lot of opportunity there. And so I think that's the stuff that really does matter, and it really takes – I've always said this about a lot of organizations. I really think it takes a different kind of leader and leadership that is not afraid to trudge a different path and to kind of try things that are unique enough that will organically eventually get them where they want. Like I can take a right and certainly get there. Or I can take a left and weave my way around, and eventually, I'll get there, and I might even be better off for that.
Yeah, and a good example recently. So when I bought the Dark Souls remastered for the PS4.
Yeah.
And so bought it off of Amazon, right? Go to Amazon, I have the thing pre-ordered, and as I'm going through the pre-order, well, what does it suggest? Well, wait a minute, there's a collector's edition strategy guide, right? I looked at it, I was like, okay, for games that I really like, somebody actually listened to our show, he kind of reminded me that he was big in strategy guides, and it got me looking at, hey, well, if there's some cool art in there, and a nice hardcover case, and so immediately, just because it suggested it and told me that there was a strategy guide and I could flip through, I could see the quality, I bought it, right?
Yeah,
pre-ordered it at the exact same time. So if I were to go into a GameStop, however, would I expect to see a display that had the game next to all the related merch? No, because there's a merch section separate from the game,
right?
And I have to be willing to do the dig through the treasure pile to actually find both of them. And I don't have an educated enough employee in a lot of cases, or the employee isn't incentivized enough because they didn't buy a used game,
right?
To actually sell me this stuff. And so, what is an easy just sales 101 cross-sell opportunity to say, hey, if you like this, you're probably going to like this. This is Amazon recommendations from years ago.
Yeah.
The fact that I don't get that level of service when I go into the store, and even if somebody can't tell me about the fact that there's this other thing I might want to buy, the fact that they are not physically located in a way where I can easily see, hey, if I found the Dark Souls section, here is every Dark Souls thing imaginable. Those things just don't pop up when you go to the store because they have devoted so much shelf space to having every copy out on the floor for all to see. And it just it looks like a dumpster bin when you go inside. And to me, as somebody who really loves the game or loves the franchise, if I go into a retail space, I want to see it like made larger than life with how they've got these displays set up. Like I want to go inside and see the big character standee with my game and all the merch. Like that's the kind of thing that would actually draw me into a store.
I think they used to do that. It felt like,
and now it's just become for like Call of Duty and Madden and all that. And I think because they just want the volume sellers that they know that people are going to be trading in and they're going to get the fast churn on.
Yeah, it's funny. I was thinking as you're talking, I was thinking more about like my experience in Japan. When the many times I had gone through Japanese game stores, they have very much like that. Japanese in general, like their gaming culture is I guess volume wise is smaller, but kind of per capita, more people play games. It's more of an open kind of a hey, everyone plays kind of thing. You wouldn't hesitate to pull out a Switch or a DS anywhere in public and play. We're here, we talked a little bit about this many episodes ago about a little bit of a stigma there, or in the U.S. rather. But, in Japan, what I was interested in, because they do make crazy awesome, figures, and some of which I've collected over the years, but they make those figures and they typically have what you're talking about, a big standee, the game in all sorts of different versions. They have the pencils, the stationery, the books, the art books, people. They have all that stuff.
How many art books have I bought in the last 12 months?
Yeah,
seriously.
right. And I have to go searching for them. And regardless of where I buy the actual game, I have to go searching for all that merchandise online because it's not right there. Now, in Japan, I noticed it was right there. And I ended up coming home with a lot of merch. And, I think, again, this is not about... I know... probably what they do is they think that, well, we're gonna put again the more profitable pieces in front of you, hoping you're gonna buy multiple used games or whatever. But really, I think what you're really looking for, your point, Aaron, is more along the lines like if you're gonna come in to pick up a Final Fantasy, I want to pick up the Final Fantasy experience, which is the game, which is the plush, which is the art book, which is the strategy guide, which is the audio CD, right? The entire thing plus the 50-foot cloud statue, right? That you want to bring this entire like $1,000 package home because you're just so excited about this game and everything surrounded by it. You can't wait to get it all home and put it out for display.
Now, let's take it to the next level even, because I remember this is probably, this is like 2 decades ago at this point. I remember getting to meet Yoshitaka Amano, illustrator
Did you
for
really?
Final Fantasy.
Oh,
Yeah,
I'm jealous.
And that was something that was huge for me. And I remember, I think he signed something, or I talked to him for a moment and just kind of thanked him honestly. But think of if you were GameStop and you have all this purchasing power, and you have somebody like that, or even again, let's take somebody in the U.S. You've got Blizzard developer down the street, let's say. What's to keep you from actually doing a developer in-store meet and greet or signing? Hey, bring your copies in. You buy them from us, and we'll sign them for for this 4-hour block while we're here. We'll get to meet with the fans. We have all these real estate locations. We can do a tour around city. We can send different employees. That is great for the developer because they actually get to meet the community and show that there are human beings making these games that care about their fans and care about seeing the excitement of the sales process. And then the fan gets this awesome memory of, hey, I talked to the artist who illustrated the Zergling. That would be the coolest story ever, and you'd never forget that. I have never seen one of these events in my lifetime at any of the game stores, whereas if you go to, like you said, Magic the Gathering conventions, you look at bookstores, you look at artist signings and author signings, that is the most common thing, and it is the only thing that keeps these places afloat.
Oh, and it's funny because, I still remember the day I met Mark Bagley, who used to draw Spider-Man. He had drawn Venom. I got the first Venom issue of this reissue. He drew the cover, and I got him. I was talking to him, got him to sign it. I remember that. And I actually, to this day, still, if I go to comic book stores, I go to that store because I still have that experience. And some people might say, well, okay, comic book stores are, like you said, they're not super great business models right now.
Right.
I think that's just because of the nature of comics in general. But I think that when you start adding things like video games, or you start reimagining that model, as we're talking, into a video game store idea, that's your point, is it, right? We're noticing, we're talking about this organic growth, we're talking about all this kind of underlying stuff. If you reimagine something like a GameStop in that comic book store model, given the multi-billion-dollar industry and the fact that thousands of people drive by your store every day that are diehard game fans, right? Where arguably maybe tens are comic book fans, right? You can really, really revitalize what it is what it means to be a game store, and bring these people who are now we've talked about Twitch before, right? And I love Twitch TV. I love those models. You're seeing the kinds of communities that they're building online because there is such a lack of local community in that space. And I can't blame people for going out. Now, like I said, I like Twitch TV, but I guarantee you 9 times out of 10, people will some people won't, but 9 times out of 10, I think people will prefer going and sitting down and playing a game with friends, like co-op or chatting, shooting the breeze in person, than they would be sitting alone by themselves in a chat channel on Twitch. Now, not to say that one of them's horrible, but I think reality is there's certainly a business model there.
Yeah, I totally agree. Now let's talk a little bit about the used game model, because this is the biggest thing that GameStop has relied on to boost their profitability for years. And it certainly hasn't gone away. But if you look at financial statements recently, this is the thing that has been on the decline that is hurting them the most, and is the reason that they are concerned. Now, I think that there's a couple different ways to play this, but knowing that this business is in the decline, and that we're finally getting to the point where I don't think certain, at least console digital games, I mean, Steam has got the pricing model down to a science, and all of the major PS Store, all of it, like they don't quite have the same savvy in terms of how to properly price digital products to really kind of incentivize people to just buy it and download it now. But they're getting there. But to me, if you're going to incentivize people to buy the physical copy, one thing that I think really needs to start happening is that they need to institute some kind of minimum quality standard for anything that is going to either be accepted as a trade-in, or even if they just want to say, hey, look, we need to keep people coming into the store, they need to know that we're going to accept their trade-in. Fine. Pay them their 55 cents for the disc only in a jewel case. Yeah. But if you have a good copy, only the good stuff, in-box with manual, makes it out onto a store floor, and basically the disc only just gets churned on eBay for lowest cost.
Churned on eBay, put together in a lot, right? Sell a lot of these games,
exactly.
right?
And to me, if you are really going to value your customer and make the experience in the physical store mean something, you've got to free up shelf space with all of these garbage, just low quality used games, because that business model, especially with the price being as ridiculous as it is, people within a couple weeks can get a digital game where, listen, if they didn't care about the quality of the physical thing, they probably don't want to own a physical thing anyway, and they're probably looking for the cheaper digital download. With how prevalent high-speed internet has become, even though the storage capacity of consoles is probably not what we'd all like it, right? It's not on par with your average PC. But still, unless you're the Nintendo Switch, you've got like a terabyte of storage, and you probably are doing okay if you just want to keep a digital games library. You are going to see this accelerate as we get into, if we get the PS5 and the next Xbox, right? I will guarantee you that once we hit that point of high download speeds, high storage capacity, and price that is more attractive on digital, this business is going to be effectively gone for GameStop. And I don't think they've done enough to help themselves in this regard when they could have. But they're running scared, I think.
I think it's a different kind of a model, right? So, and I saw this, years and years ago, we had these things. Actually, they're still there, called newspapers, right? and I distinctly saw two, back in the 90s, with the silicon bubble was coming up, the internet was coming up, right? All this technology, you kind of could, some people better than others, but most people could foresee the way things were going. And so if you're a newspaper owner, right, and you're relying on getting the news out every morning, and there's always going to be some percent of the population who will always get the paper, you've got to understand that this thing called the internet is a great way to deliver news quicker, faster, more directly, arguably, than your current medium. And so I'd seen newspapers go two different ways, right? Some of the more popular ones, like the New York Times, like big ones, said, okay, we're going to push out these brand new digital channels online, and we're going to still have the paper, but the real emphasis is going to put a lot behind the new way of thinking, right? And the ones that they did really well, the ones that didn't do so well, particularly the paper here in Atlanta had struggled for many years, still struggling, because they didn't really put all their eggs in the basket from this new technology piece. They just said, okay, we're going to force people to find ways to get people to do what we think they should be doing, what we've always been doing. Think about how that goes into this scenario, right? We could all see the writing on the wall that with digital downloads and this increase, the decrease in physical copies purchased, just in general, means that used market is going to get smaller and smaller and smaller, and especially considering a GameStop scenario where you've got a geographic location that each, a radius that each center, each franchise, right, actually can sell to, that becomes really scary. But what GameStop did that was so shocking to me is it's kind of like HBO with pirating Game of Thrones or whatnot. They shout at the rain. They say, no, we're going to go after people trying to do things that we don't want them to do so that they can do game. We're going to go try to fix this model so that digital isn't an option.
Yeah, we're going to make it harder.
Make it harder. We're going to try to do these underhanded deals with other publishers and other things to try and make sure that our model stays the same. Instead of saying, look, the world is changing.
Yep.
Cars are going to fly now. If I'm a tire manufacturer and cars are going to fly, I better be smart and figure out what to do with all this rubber. What am I going to build that's not a tire? And that, I think, is what they should have done in this case. They should have gone back and said, look, this used market is something we can do, but this is going to dry up at some point in the near future, 10 years or whatnot. Let's continue this, but the understanding with the forecast is that is going to decline, and while we're doing that, we're going to cross it up with another opportunity that can leverage all the great things we're doing, and we can raise that up. So it's going to come up in place of this used game thing. Now, what that does is it doesn't confuse the marketplace and consumers. It doesn't generate this frustration where you've got this retail giant who thinks they can throw their weight around and really change an industry, where you've got developers and publishers and everyone else kind of sitting here saying, well, we're you can't tell us what to do. I don't understand.
No, that's right. Now, I think that that is clearly an area for improvement that hopefully change is going to come. Like you said, if the flying car is coming, GameStop is not going to be able to change that. They're not that powerful. But let's talk about kind of what to do with all this extra space that we freed up in the store. So we talked earlier about having kind of, I'll call it meet and greet events with, let's say, game developers. One of the biggest things that's going on in gaming is esports, right? You talked about Twitch. Yeah. Clearly, it's all over the place. There are people that are investors making big bets on esports, looking for ways to invest in this because it's clearly a growing trend. Now, GameStop, with all of these physical locations, you've got local player bases. We talked about cultivating that local community. If you were to go into a local tabletop or board game store, right? You would see Magic games, you would see board games, all kinds of meetups happening, people playing every night of the week. And to me, I go to these, right? I'm in around the store. Let's just say I'm waiting for a game to wrap up so we can go to the next round. What am I doing, Chris? I'm roaming around the store. I'm picking stuff up. Oh, and usually I buy something.
Right.
And to me, the fact that I think the way that GameStop looks at it currently is, we don't want people roaming around and talking about games in our store because they're not buying and they're just clogging up the aisles so that little Jimmy can't find his used unmarked copy of Madden in the store because the store is so cluttered and crowded that it doesn't incentivize them to keep the person in the store. They want to make the transaction and they want to churn them out rather than saying, no, we get paid more by keeping them in the store longer. They fundamentally have the wrong idea about how to cultivate the in-store experience to say, we want to keep, the more we keep you, the more money we make, rather than, hey, the faster we kick you out the door with your game warranty, the better off we are.
Right. I mean, so by the way, back to that business trip I took. It was probably 8:30, 9 o'clock by the time I went into that store, and I walked in, and it was dead. There was nobody there. And to your analogy, talking about game stores or Magic kind of, card stores, comic shops, 9 o'clock, they'd have people there doing stuff and having fun and whatever. It would be a little more lively atmosphere because people come home after work and after dinner and want to get out and play a little bit. Here, it was absolutely, completely dead. It was like an employee, maybe two, and me, and I immediately felt awkward walking in, and I, like I said, I left relatively quickly, and it was a completely negative experience. It was not what it should have been, and I think that's really at the heart of what we're trying to talk about here.
I go to board game stores, and to this day, they have weekly Smash Brothers tournaments.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there looking at the scene and saying, why is this not happening in a GameStop? Like, there is a store that sells this hobby that should have all the space. They have TVs in the store. They have consoles. They have games. I mean, imagine this, Chris. New Smash Brothers for the Switch comes out. Going to be a huge game, huge seller. Imagine that you are hosting tournaments, one night of the week, let's say, and that on that night, let's say you offer a discount on the game. So people who are just, hey, come play Smash Brothers with me, Chris. You never played it before. Come play this tournament. Whether they charge $5 or it's in store and it's free and they just want to use it to generate publicity. Hey, we'll offer you $5 off the game and we'll sell you. We'll have a discount on amiibos and all of these things that they could do to promote. Hey, come into the store.
Right.
You have to buy from here, not just because you're going to buy the game, but you're going to get this experience that's not going on in the Amazon distribution facility. It's not going on eBay. And there's none of that. I mean, you have to go back in time, Chris, to like the Blockbuster Championships to get an experience like this.
Right.
And I've never to this day had that kind of experience in a GameStop. And to me, like, that is the future. If esports really is going to be one of the fastest growing segments of sports, whatever you want to call, then there has to be more than just the huge stadiums that are built for spectator sports. There has to be this kind of local, I'm going to go to this shop, I'm going to meet up with my friends, and we're going to play some games, and we're probably going to sit around and we're going to buy something.
Yeah. And it's funny, I was thinking more about that, and we had, at our local mall here when I was growing up, we had an arcade that was across from a software, et cetera, and my parents would want to go to the bookstore down the road or down the way there, so they go to the bookstore. I tell them I'd be in one of those two stores, right? So whether the arcade or across the way. And oftentimes that's what you would do. You would have, like, I remember back in the day we had like 3DOs that were on. They had like the horrible 3DO games minus Road Rash that was out. And so what we had done was, we'd go across to Software Etc. and we'd play 3DO and we'd chat a little bit. It's a little bit of a microcosm what you're talking about here. While Software Etc. certainly wasn't that business model, right? They were still very much a computer software store that had games on it. In it, there was still a little bit of an organic thing where we kind of just said, hey, a handful of us are going to go play this game. We're going to have this tournament. We're going to talk about, or just be excited about the games. We're going to look around. Now, granted, at that point, we were kids with virtually zero buying power, but still says that, this is an area, especially thinking about, arcades and in our episode with arcades, having them die out. There is a very strong desire, I think, to have this kind of connection, and we just don't have it available.
Yeah. Now, one of the other things, and we'll kind of close on this, I'm sure there's many more ideas. One of the things that I think is missing is just the organization of the store, right? It's all organized by console. Maybe they put it by alphabetical order and new and used copies and all that. But the reality is, that just takes longer than an Amazon or an eBay search, right? Mm-hmm. That we've established that's never going to change. But to me, why don't you configure the store in a way that actually educates your customers and forces a conversation with your employees? So let me give you a couple examples. Let's say I've got a Final Fantasy game that is out, and I want to highlight the fact that if somebody is into Final Fantasy, well, maybe they'll like Persona, right? When I first played Final Fantasy, I didn't know about the Shin Megami Tensei series. If somebody would have actually physically located the Persona games next to Final Fantasy and had some kind of in-store like, hey, if you like this, maybe you'll like this thing, and have them together, that would incentivize me to, I like RPGs. What are some other ones? And I don't have to actually, ask a disgruntled employee or roam around the store and pick up backs of boxes to actually read about these things, or go to the internet and do the research, in which I'm inevitably going to just buy it online while I'm there.
Yeah.
Or, Chris, what about if I had something where, as a connection to employees, let's say I had a wall in the store that was dedicated to say, hey, every employee in the store, we're going to say, just so we can understand your personality as a gamer, we're going to give you like 1 game or 3 games of the month that you're going to highlight and say like, hey, little Billy store employee, my favorite game that I'm playing is Rocket League or whatnot. And, talk to me. My favorite part is this. A little tidbit about that employee. And great. When a customer goes in and they go to the wall and they say like, oh, you like Rocket League? I like let's talk about it. And right, it immediately, just by having the actual store set up in a way, you actually connect the customers to the people working at your store instead of just letting them be mindless drones. Because, right, we established most of the people who go work at a GameStop are gamers. And if they're focused on trying to peddle product that nobody wants, then they're going to have a crappy experience and they're not going to serve your customer well. Whereas if you let them talk about the thing that they love, the reality is they're probably going to sell more of it, right? When I worked in the mall at Brookstone and I got to sell Tempur-Pedic pillows, I loved Tempur-Pedic pillows. I thought it was the coolest thing ever. I sold a ton of them because I was like, oh, this is so cool. Check this out. Like, lay down on this pillow and you will see the difference. And when you're actually passionate about the product, all you have to do is get out of your own way and let people do what they know how to do.
Well, the other things, and I think I just don't see it, and maybe this is happening inside the organization and R&D that they've decided to change, or it's failed or whatnot, but I would also leverage the fact to think about who else we have. What does your customer base represent, right? By and large, except for some of, like, we talk about the grandmothers and the grandfathers coming in and trying to buy their grandkids some games. There are always going to be those. But so this is not for everyone. But by and large, a lot of gamers are tech savvy kind of people, right? They have computers, they have iPads, they have all the devices and all those kinds of things. They kind of just get software and hardware and this technology piece. And so why not leverage that in some cases? Why not leverage the fact that, you said, if I come in looking for a game, give me some terminals or give me some way that I can interact with my devices or whatever to help me show me via altered reality or whatever. Show me where where these things are in your store, or a little bit more out there. But think about how you could do something like, we're all gamers. We all like challenges. We all like puzzles. We all like these kinds of things. We'll have customers that come interact in some meaningful way with your store and your products and in the different segments of your store as though it were a game. Like, get them engrossed in the experience of coming to that thing beyond let me go in, try to find the box I want, hand it to the person, pay, and leave. Like you said, engross them in the experience, as well as the other kinds of things we've been talking about throughout the entire show. I think those kinds of areas are things that I'd love to see piloted and tested in certain areas, see if they work. Maybe it's a dumb idea, I don't know. But the point is, the point I was making earlier with the newspapers is the way that these game stores are, and GameStop has continued to conduct itself, hasn't really changed over the last 20 some odd years,
right,
from the stores that they came from. And in an industry that is changing so much, technology is changing so much. You've got big, large multinational corporations who are being forced to move in very, very strange ways because of the dynamicism of the technology curve. Why aren't we seeing it in these retail outlets like this, especially where you've got such an interesting niche of customer base? You don't have to worry about, the 85-year-old an 85-year-old that wants to come to a GameStop wants to play games, right? They want to play games. Right. The 15-year-old coming to a GameStop wants to play games. There's a lot you can use there to help target your customers.
Yeah, and I think your point, and what we'll close on this, is that the reality is the industry's changing, whether GameStop wants it to or not. Mm-hmm. I hope we both want GameStop to be successful. And some of the things we laid out, I would love to see. I mean, those ones are on us, right? If you implement those, I'd be happy for you to say, hey, good job, business casual gamers. Thanks for the idea. We just want to see it, right? Our reasonable hourly rates.
Surprisingly, no one's called us yet. I don't know why.
Right, but I think that this is an area where if GameStop can really start to transition in a meaningful way into some of these areas, I think they could be relevant for the next decade instead of just kind of being on the decline and trying to grasp at the straws that they have remaining. I really hope that they do implement some of these, and I really do wish them a lot of success as they try to navigate through what you said are very uncertain waters. Yeah,
we can't lose like you said, we've not. This episode is not about bashing GameStop. It's really talking about like we said before, the positives and the negatives, and trying to offer our form of way to move forward. Because like you said, we don't want another Toys R Us situation where everyone comes out of
a great point.
As Toys R Us is closing, everyone's like, no, wait, we love this store. Well, but we collectively, the customers and the store itself, didn't do anything to help really keep that ecosystem together. Here's a chance where we do see GameStop, like you said, Aaron, they are declining, I think, and I think there's some opportunities for us, because in this weird world now with social media, these companies listen to, even the quietest voice in social media when it comes to some of their things. We have the opportunities to connect with them in ways we haven't before and give them feedback in ways we haven't. This is a perfect example of an opportunity for us to engage in those levels and tell the companies that we want to stay around how we think we should be interacting, and see if they can make that. They can build a model around it and make it work long term.
So what do you, the listeners, think? We would love to hear from you. Many of you, I think, have your own GameStop stories. Hopefully your brains didn't melt from the role play that we did at the top of this with the trade-in experience. Maybe some of you never made it past that. But we would love to hear any of your GameStop stories, any other thoughts that you have, either things that you've seen that are bad that need to change, and honestly, constructive suggestions of what you'd like to see GameStop do better. So we'd love to hear. Hit us up, businesscasualgamers.com. Tweet at us at BISCasualGamers. Look for some YouTube content. We've got some stuff that we're talking about that should be in the works very soon. So look for us on Business Casual Gamers on YouTube. And as always, if you've enjoyed this episode or any others, the best thing you could do is either, both really, forward this show to a friend or a family member or somebody you think might like it. And please do take a moment to rate us on iTunes or your podcast destination of choice. It really is the best way to help us build our community, whether GameStop will build theirs. And we would really appreciate you taking the time to do that.
Yep, and with that, we will bring episode 56 to a close.
Thanks, everyone.